was super kind to us last year. Last year we did the Olympic torch relay with they invited us here, and from here we did a man-written tweet to Macron who replied, so blah blah blah. Anyway, but this year I'm back with that animal, my best friends, because
Pardon? Hello, Dave.
being stupid. I'm like, sorry.
I think it's the afternoon. We're going to start in a couple of minutes, just waiting for a few latecomers, but we'll start in 1 or 2 minutes if that's okay with you. You okay? Ah, okay.
Where you want. Change your video.
So let's see if the acoustics are better.
Yes.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this press conference. It's on the theme of superhumanity, how AI is being used to enhance performance and add to our abilities and lives, how it's being used to overcome severe physical challenges and to improve lives and even to extend lives. So we have a variety of speakers for you today. I'm going to ask them to be telling their own story to you, each for about 5 to 10 minutes. And then we will open to questions from you. We have 2 microphones in the room somewhere. So by the time we get to questions, please, if you can wait for the microphone, that would be great. And if you could state your name and your affiliation, your publication, that would also be great. So I want to start really by, on my right-hand side, introducing Leslie Saxon. She's the Executive Director of the USC Center for Body Computing and the Keck School of Medicine of USC. To my left-hand side, someone from my own home country, Charlotte Henshaw, MBE. She is a Paralympian athlete and a gold medalist for Great Britain. To her left is Tilly Lockie, who some of you may see on British TV. And to her left is Olivier Rillier of Inclusive Brains, and Rodrigo Mendez, who is the CEO and founder of the Institute Rodrigo Mendez and has worked with Olivier for quite some time now. So they're going to be telling their story. I would say, again, if you could keep your questions to the end and use the microphone, that would be fantastic. We aim to finish around about 1:15, hopefully. So I will now hand over, if I may, to Leslie Saxon.
Thank you, Chris. Hi. Okay. Can everybody hear me okay? Thank you, Chris. My name's Leslie Saxon. I'm from Los Angeles, University of Southern California. We have a big sports team. I think we're number 13 in Olympic medals if we were a country, so big sports university. But I'm an interventional cardiologist who spent most of my career trying to prevent sudden cardiac death, and one of my specialties is in the athlete. Unfortunately, that's one of the things that you really need to get to someone first if they have sudden cardiac death, because the chances are they're going to die if they're not defibrillated. So I was very interested my whole career in trying to get in front of the first sudden cardiac death. And one of the things we observed from implanting defibrillators to protect people from sudden cardiac death was that if you connected a defibrillator to a network and streamed data from it all the time, people lived longer. And I started the first academic health center in the United States to deal with digital health. This was the year the iPhone came out. So it was science fiction, but better lucky than good, right? Because things happened. And I was very interested in the concept of how the networks and large language models streaming data could help people get in front of the first disease. And because I'm a cardiologist and I deal with heart disease and I deal with elite athletic performance, lots of programs in American professional sports, I was very interested in how to enfranchise with data the user. So I want to talk about that for a second. What's happened since I started the Center for Body Computing? The smartphone has become the ubiquitous computing platform of the time, and there are global networks, and there's cloud storage, and there's high definition video, and now there's AI. So the potential to create a human performance and healthcare system around a user, whether they're well or sick, is now possible. And that's what we study, and that's what we build. So we're making this handshake with technology where we're saying, how can we augment the human to get in front of the first disease? It's what a lot of billionaires in my country are trying to achieve longevity from, right? How do I become immortal? I have money, my life is good. How do I keep it going, right? How do I improve not just my lifespan, but my health span? I think the way to do that is to get in front of the first disease. Once you're an elite athlete, that first injury predisposes you to more injury. Once you have chronic disease, you're going to get acute on chronic disease. The key to health span and lifespan is getting in front of the first injury. You can't do that unless you engage the user in their own care. Now the device to do that is a smartphone with apps, but we don't know what the new AI computing device will be. Maybe it'll stay the smartphone, maybe it'll be something else. A lot of people are working on that. The other thing that I've learned in my research is that this concept of health and human performance care surrounding the end user for their entire life, we have to fill in a lot of gaps that we don't know about in medicine or human performance. What is the science behind the transition from health to disease? We know very little about that. We actually know very little about personalized nutrition, as I'm sure some of the athletes here will talk about. So what this type of system does, it allows us to fill in the gaps. And I can tell you from my research, performed in athletes, performed in warfighters, that when you have established disease, populations tend to look the same in terms of their data. Diabetics, good control, bad control, atherosclerotic heart disease causing heart attacks. When you're in front of the first disease, people look very different. Everybody is a fingerprint. I can't take a midfielder or a running back in American football, the same elite status, they look completely different underneath. Unlike disease, where everybody starts to look a little bit more the same. So you need to measure everyone individual, not just their heart rate and not just their arrhythmia, but their metabolism, their cognition, their fatigue. So you need to treat the human as a system. When I first started doing research in US warfighters, the general said to me, treat us at least as good as we treat our weapon systems. Maintain us through our lifetime, mind and body. And it was really a profound moment for me because I'm a subspecialist that just deals in hearts. But I'm like, oh my God, the human is a system, right? So to achieve this, we need precision medicine. We need to treat the human as a system, but we don't just need their mind and body. We need to know how they grew up, how much money they had, how much deprivation or how much wealth, how it helped them or hurt them. We need to know their environmental factors, how hot it is to maintain them in the moment. So treat the human as a system, engage them, and prevent the first disease. So in elite performance, where AI comes in and where we work, and we're working in a lot of professional sports, we're planning for the Olympics in 2028. How do we keep the athlete and the fan healthy? How do we use human-centered measurements to create joint experiences? And for us, for the LA 2028 Olympics, for the US team, because we have home field advantage, we want to win. We want to win more medals. How do we use that, both socially? How do we connect athletes to their families to win? And in the last Olympics, I think in Paris, we lost a ton of matches in the final moments, clutch competitions, both teams and individuals. And women actually did better in that regard, our female athletes. But how do we give athletes that winning mindset? What does that require? So it's a number of factors. So if you remember anything about what I'm saying and how AI will help, it's engaging the individual in the moment with the data they need to get in front of their first injury. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leslie. I'm going to hand over now to Charlotte Henshaw. Thank you.
Thank you. That's made me a little bit worried to face an American opponent in LA. That sounds amazing. Hi, everybody. I'm Charlotte. I'm a Paralympic athlete, have been since 2006. I don't look old enough, I know. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit today, not from an area of expertise really about AI, but my experience as an elite athlete in the Paralympic world for many, many years. I started my career as a para swimmer in 2008. Did 3 Paralympics as a swimmer, and then did that traditional sports switch to para canoe in 2017, and have won 3 gold medals at Tokyo and Paris since that move. But my story really started when I was 15 months old, when I had a bilateral leg amputation because of a congenital birth defect, which is still unknown, which is I'm a bit of an anomaly. No one really knows why. But the course of treatment was an amputation through the knee at 15 months old. So I've been a prosthetics user since 1989. And as I'm sure you are all very aware, there has been a huge amount of technological advancement since then. And as somebody who uses their prosthetics for all of their life, every day, I don't often take them off apart from when I'm now getting into a boat. It has been a huge adjustment for somebody like me to get used to the things that are being offered to me. And I think that that's why I was really keen to come to this event, because it's about keeping that human connection, no matter that we have these technological advancements, these AI inventions. If we're not involving the human, we might be going wrong somewhere. And so for me, about 4 or 5 years ago, I was given the opportunity to try a microprocessor set of legs. And they basically, to me, they looked like they could walk themselves. I didn't have to do a great amount of walking. And as somebody that had learnt to do everything with very basic limbs, it felt like a huge, huge adjustment. And to the point where I actually didn't want to use them. And so that really got me thinking that how are we going to best use this technology if people who have had their amputations for an awfully long time are really hesitant to use them? And so I think for me, it was about having those conversations with my prosthetists. Maybe I didn't need a leg that was all singing or dancing, didn't need all the bells and whistles. I needed it to help me just a fraction. And that for me gave me a hugely better quality of life. And so I think if there was anything that I would say about working with people with an amputation, it is that you have to meet them where they're at. They can't just come with a user manual of these knees and go, these will change your life, when actually for me, they made me feel more disabled. And so I think that's a really important part to remember, and it's certainly something I was surprised by when I started using them. And I guess the other part of my life, the performance side of it, that very much kind of links into what Leslie was just talking about, is that development of how do we make sure that we are in tip-top performance every single day to train, to perform. And at the moment, canoeing is in its relative infancy in terms of Paralympic sport. We didn't enter the Paralympic program until 2016, so we're still less than 10 years into our Paralympic journey. And we are, alongside other sports that have got a much more in-depth amount of knowledge around their athletes, around the impairments that are taking part in that sport. And we're still very much using basic technology. We have a daily wellness app that is very subjective. We have to fill it in. And so if I want to train, but I feel a bit tired, I could just fudge the numbers a little bit and go, no, I'm absolutely fine. And then, like Leslie was saying, those injuries start to creep in. We don't tailor the training to how we should be training, how each individual is responding. And so new advancements in terms of data acquisition that maybe take that responsibility a little bit off the athlete to report in a true and honest way is where we're kind of moving to. And I think it just shows something that happened to me yesterday of how quickly we're moving in elite sport and in performance sport. I was going to come here and sort of talk aspirationally about what we would love to see in canoeing, certainly in the Paralympic space. Canoeing is about exerting power and overcoming the inertia of the water and moving through the water quickly. And so we obsess about stroke rate and stroke profile and the pitch and the roll of the boat. And we would love to kind of get some form of technology that creates a perfect paddler and then kind of judge each individual's performance alongside it. But we were kind of unaware if anything like that was happening. And only a couple of days ago on Instagram, a company reached out to me and said, we're starting to look at this. We want to start getting this involved in Paralympic sport. And so I think it just shows you how fast technologies are advancing, but also how quickly we as athletes have got to get used to that. It's something that, you know, we're very used to having control over everything and knowing everything, but to allow ourselves to trust in this technology is a huge, huge thing. And so I really hope that the technologies that are coming are then starting to be tailored to Paralympic athletes and the impairments that are involved in each sport. We often come up against things that are traditionally looked at in an able-bodied athlete, and in canoeing particularly, our impairments are leg amputees and spinal cord injuries, which just create a completely different profile of an athlete than you have when you have two fully working arms and legs. And so what my wish is that that technology that is starting to come is starting to do what we're doing in the prosthetics world and look at the individual and how we can best help them to increase their athletic performance.
Thanks very much, Charlotte. I'll now hand over to Tilly, who's to her left, who has a great story to tell also, and maybe a demonstration as well. Thank you.
Maybe. Oh, hello. Hello, everybody. Yeah, my name is Tilly. First of all, hearing you guys and what you're doing is like absolutely amazing. I'm so honored to be on a panel with all of you guys. Chatting to everybody has been amazing. I'm so happy to be here at the AI for Good Summit. I think there's a lot of fear mongering everywhere, but it's always good to come together and actually pay attention to all the amazing things AI is doing, especially in the medical space and things like that. I fully believe that doesn't get enough attention. It's all like ChatGPT, but like it's also doing all these things to help enable people and accelerate their lives personally. And my story is very similar to Charlotte's as well. In the same way, I became an amputee at 15 months old. What a coincidence. I lost my hands to a disease called meningitis septicemia when I was 15 months old, and it was strain B. Was rushed to the hospital. They like saw no hope in it, basically like 0% chance of survival, they said. But obviously I am here today. So I was able to survive that. My little body fought it, but the septicemia had well and truly sort of killed off my hands. They were all like dark and killed over. So at that point they were dead to me. And the adaptation actually started in the hospital when like I looked down and saw how broken my hands were, and I decided to just go at my next challenge with my wrists. You know, the adaptation literally started at like 15 months, which is crazy. And yeah, my whole life has been a thing of adaptation. I had my hands amputated at 15 months. I got pretty much fresh out the bandages and straight into prosthetics when I was about 2. I got my first prosthetic from the NHS, which, like Charlotte says, like we've just been talking about, like the evolution of prosthetics has come such a long way. Back then, there was no tech in it. It was like all rubber bands, strings, you know. There was no tech, and it was like a hook sort of thing. So yeah, we've come a super long way, and I've always been at the forefront of technology. I actually became the youngest person in the UK to receive a myoelectric arm, because me and my family were always like, we want something that's actually going to help. I was given a cosmetic glove at first, and it was like, what's the point? Like, this isn't tech. Like, we want something that's going to function, not just stick on the end and like cover up this difference, you know? So at that point, I tried my first myoelectric when I was about 3. Took that to nursery, and that was great, but there was still a long way to go. They moved like super slowly. It was only a single grip, and some of them got really pricey, as you might know. Like my most expensive pair were literally like 36 grand, which we had to fundraise privately, and big up my community in the northeast of England, because they really got behind me, and without them I probably wouldn't be wearing prosthetics here today. But yeah, so I was wearing those arms. There was still a way to go, and it was just a case of always being on the lookout for the next great thing. And growing up throughout my life, there were a couple companies all doing the same sort of thing, and the big challenge was that there was never anything for kids. You know, anything that was advancing, it was for adults, and we were just shut down time and time again, saying that the tech couldn't shrink small enough to fit into a child-sized hand. So at that point, it was forced to give it a little break, but then the miracle of 3D printing came about. And that was a massive, massive, you know, breakthrough in so many industries, but especially in prosthetics, because it was able to make prosthetics more affordable, more lightweight, more comfortable, easier turnaround in production. So my mum actually just got on the internet and she Googled 3D printed prosthetics, and that's when a company called Open Bionics popped up, and they're a Bristol-based company in England, and I've been working with them ever since I was 9 years old. They are the company who make the bionic arms I wear here today, which are fully 3D printed with the odd little bit of titanium now to make them more robust, and you know, they've just come with the times a little bit. But yeah, I was working with Open Bionics since I was 9. I'm 19 now. So it's been like a whole decade. Together we launched the Hero Arm, which was like an absolute revolutionary like prosthetic. It broke all the records. It was the first medically approved prosthetic arm, and it went out to all these different kids and things. And basically my role in it is to work with Open Bionics, and I'm kind of like a professional guinea pig, if you will. So I'll test all the new upgrades and give brutally honest feedback, and I want to emphasize that it's got to be brutally honest, because like Charlotte was saying, I believe it's so important to work with the user, go back and forth with the user, especially with a medical device. Like I literally travel around the world talking to companies about this, because if you're making a product and you're not consulting with the people who are going to be wearing that, and consult with the people whose life you're actually trying to change, like what are you doing? Like you need to be talking to that user. So I preach a lot about that, and that's sort of my role. So I'll test anything new, I'll give feedback. I've seen a couple of my inventions make it into the arm, which is amazing, because then I see some kid in like France, and they're like, it's their favorite feature, and it helps them in their day to day, and that's what it's all about, basically, just getting them the best they can possibly be. So this here is the Hero Pro, and these literally just launched 2 months ago, and these aren't even mine, these are just the prototypes. So yeah, I'm still getting used to them. There's a couple of changes. The main thing is that they're a hell of a lot stronger. So that's one thing I'm getting used to. And these aren't even the strongest one. In the last 2 months, they launched 3 new products. So we've got the Hero Pro, the Hero Rugged, which is like extra strong, robust for like big pharma guys, which I cannot be trusted with. And they've also got the Hero Flex, which is the activity arm. So anybody who wants to do sport, play instruments, I've got one to help me play the drums. You can like switch the hand off, like switch it around and put all these different attachments on, which has been really, really great, because you just need to take the socket and the attachment, which saves just carrying around a million legs and hands, you know, whenever you want to do something. But yeah, so these actually, there's not any AI in them at all at this point, but AI is very much going to be the next step. So the way these bionic arms operate is through EMGs. So I've got these little sensors here that track the electric signals from my muscle movements on the inside of the arm. And we actually call these myopods. So I've got one on this side in each arm. And it's just these 2 muscle movements that control the entire hand, from like an open close, from a grasp to a peace sign, a point. It's literally just those 2 muscles. So for a quick little demo, I'll do squeeze to close, flex to open, and then to access other grip modes, basically what I'll do is flex to open the hand, and then if I keep flexing all the way, you see that thumb come around. That basically triggers a grip mode change. And then it kind of works like a menu system from that point onwards. So you've got a grasp like this, which I'd use to like shake somebody's hand. Come and see me after if you want to try that. Change the grip mode. If I was to hold like a glass of water like I was drinking earlier, then I can press the button on the back. Now if I squeeze that same muscle, you'll see only one finger come down and a tiny little pinch. So we've got all our dexterous modes on this setting. Change the grip mode again. You've got a point, which also comes down. It's good for like picking popcorn out of a bowl. Change the grip mode again. You've got 2 fingers. And then you've got this, which I call the peace sign. They call the tripod grip mode. So they're all like the dexterous ones. And then if I press it one more time, you've got this point, which I've been using a lot. You've got this, which they call the key grip. At first I was like, what is the point of this? Like, I didn't think I was going to use it at all. I use it all the time now. The thumb used to be manual. You used to have to like click it in and out. So we now have a mechanical thumb, which is brand new. Change the grip mode one more time. This is the finger roll, which I like to use kind of when I'm flexing flexing it because it looks really cool when it like rolls down like that. And then I'm testing a new grip mode at the minute, which is not perfected, but it basically allows me to like flick. So they're the first bionic arms in the world that can like flick, which I'm not sure why they wanted to do that, but they can flick, I guess.
Because you can.
Yeah, because you can. Why not, you know? So there's a couple of new things. There's also like the wrist movement. I've never experienced wrist flexion up and down before. That's still manual. A thing I'd love to see is an automatic wrist. But yeah, I've never had that wrist before. So there's a couple of things I'm still getting used to, and there's still a way to go as well. Like these are the head of the game right now, but the second AI gets involved and all these other things, like there's so much further we can take it. So it's really exciting time, and I'm honestly like just so excited to be at the forefront of it and help give any feedback that I can give to help them be better for kids and adults alike who are actually going to use it. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Thanks very much, Tilly. Thank you. I'll hand over now to Rodrigo and Olivier, who will kind of co-present what they have come to talk about. So whoever wants to go first, Olivier or Rodrigo.
Please introduce yourself.
Okay. So hello everyone. I'm Rodrigo from Brazil, and our institute promotes the access of children with disabilities in mainstream classes. We do that through 3 different programs. First, investing in research about best practice around the world. Second, promoting teacher training. And third, organizing programs that develops public policy around the world. So dipping directly into the universe of technology and AI, some years ago, a TV channel invited me to be part of a campaign, and they proposed the challenge of using IT device that in theory would allow me to drive a racing car using my mind. So imagine you are inside a racing car that has no steering wheel, no pedals, and you are using a helmet that has electrodes that reads your brain waves. And well, I just remember the moment when the project leader came and said, "Okay, Rodrigo, are you ready? Can we start?" Well, I concentrated, took a deep breath, and gave the first command, which was to accelerate. And the car started running. So there are a lot of materials that can share this experience with you, but this is just a personal experience. It's amazing, but it's just one man, one technology, one machine, and that's not enough. For us, this project is just a trigger to push people mindset and to challenge all of us to really guarantee that every child has access to education. So that's what we have been doing over the last 30 years, and now together with Olivier, our plan is to really think how all those IT resources, the AI, new generation tech can help us eliminate barriers and promote accessibility to all those children. So that's why we are here.
I'm Olivier. Full disclosure, I'm with Inclusive Brains, Biotech Dental Group, the Mohammed bin Zayed University, and Ex-Marseille University, who are all supporting the project. And during AI for Good, I am the driver of the Formula One driver that you see here. So the very first man ever to mind control a real Formula One car on a real racetrack. We're not talking about a simulation here. And that was 8 years ago. 8 years ago. The year after, him and I were in Dubai to tell the story. and Rodrigo met with the best driver in history, Sir Lewis Hamilton. Of course, we discussed motor racing, but something else happened. Rodrigo challenged Lewis Hamilton to a race. And Sir Lewis accepted the race, the mind control race. Where are we with that, Rodrigo?
Yeah, and I'm sure Lewis will accept that challenge, and we will run someday. So we were in Dubai, as Oli was explaining, and Lewis is a very kind, and he understood that we are really trying to make this a showcase to talk about education. So it's going to, Oliver is organizing that, and Lewis, we are helping you. We hope you can get that.
He's such a class act. We might be the only people in the world who wait until he retires from Formula One to be able to do the race. But they've been in touch, his management, and we're really grateful because from day one he's been supportive. But there is more to that. In 2016, Rodrigo was an Olympic torchbearer. And from the conversation we got with him, we understood that we could do something for the Paris Olympics. And we, and when I say we, it's my co-founder, Paul Barbast, who helped me co-found Inclusive Brains and who will join us on Friday when we will give more details about what we do on the main stage at 12:05. Paul saw the video of Lewis, Rodrigo, and I, and without that interaction with Lewis Hamilton and Rodrigo mind controlling the Formula One, there would be no Inclusive Brains. So we launched Project Prometheus in partnership with Allianz Trade. The idea was to leverage brain-computer interfaces to mind control an arm exoskeleton and empower someone who could not do voluntary movement, someone with physical and cognitive impairments, to be an Olympic torchbearer. And the way it worked is, unlike Rodrigo, Natalie, our volunteer, cannot focus enough in order just to leverage her brainwaves to mind control the exoskeleton. So we adapted the technology to what she can do. And she could do a beautiful smile and a second facial expression that allowed her to be able to move the exoskeleton and led to that moment. And here I'm building on what Charlotte mentioned, on what Tilly mentioned. Technology is here to serve us human beings. It has to be accessible, it has to be inclusive, meaning that technology, AI, has to be developed for everybody. And when I mean everybody is with zero discrimination whatsoever, but with one goal in mind. Technology should adapt to us. We spend our lives adapting to technology, new phones, new computers, new cars. We adapt. But we're so different, we're so unique. We keep on reading, saying that there is no brain like the other, there is no person like the other, yet the world is offering us one-size-fits-all solution. Those do not work. Thanks to AI, to adaptive AI systems, we've been able to build multimodal brain-machine interfaces that can adapt to people. And the way we did it was to train AI models with brainwaves, facial expression, eye tracking, heartbeats, and other measures. So the very first public demonstration of Prometheus BCI happened at Fortune Brainstorm AI in London last year, live. Then this happened on May 9th, 2024, in my hometown of Marseille, France, in front of millions of people. So more millions after Rodrigo's fan club around the world and the Formula One. And we were kindly invited last year by ITU, and thank you again to the ITU, to the United Nations for allowing us to share with you what we developed. So from this very stage last year, my co-founder Paul Barbast, hands off, mind wrote a tweet, uploaded a picture of Natalie at the Olympic torch relay, and sent it to no other than President Macron, who kindly replied and congratulated us. Two things are important here. All the solutions we're developing are non-invasive. They do not require surgery. They do not require implant. And It's not one methodology against the other. Both are absolutely necessary in today's world in order to help people who, because of accidents of life or neurodegenerative disease, have lost the ability to use their limbs or to speak. For instance, I'm a huge fan of a solution, but it cannot work on Rodrigo because Rodrigo cannot send these electric messages and control them to his limbs. So we need something else. And this is where brain-computer interfaces come. And once again, it's not invasive against non-invasive. It's not prosthetics with EMG against brain-computer interfaces. It's a holistic approach to find the solutions that fit best what makes us unique from a physical and cognitive point of view. But because there is a huge hurdle that we need to face. There is a problem today when we want to move, and you very beautifully said it, Rodrigo, from one-off performances that are used by one person. We want to be able to scale the technology of brain-computer interface, the way this technology has been scaled and being off the shelf. And for that, there is one thing that is missing: brain data. We do not have enough brain data. Unlike many other so-called AI startups, for those of you who are familiar, a lot of AI startups can raise money, buy big databases to train their models, and come with a prototype, an MVP, very quickly. It was impossible for us because the brain data that we need did not exist. We had to create it. And this is why we're here this year at the AI for Good Summit. We're launching Brainwaves for Inclusion. Inspired by blood donation, we're launching a global call for people to donate their brainwaves. But it's actually better than donating the blood, because when you give your blood, you don't know what people do with it. Donate brainwaves will imply a way for people not only to own their data. Data ownership is crucial, but also to decide whether they agree or not for their brainwaves to participate in a special project or not. For instance, some people who are against Formula One might not want to contribute their brainwaves to our race against Lewis Hamilton, and they will be free to do it, and that's absolutely normal these days, beyond brain-computer interfaces, beyond assistive technology, for all of us to own our data and to control our data, and not only for a handful of companies to monetize them. We are working with the Neuro Rights Foundation, with the Assistive Tech and AI for Inclusion Impact Initiative by the World Economic Forum Young Global Leaders, and many experts in regulation, data security, data ownership, ethics, science, top universities, in order to make sure that we're doing things the right way. But the goal is the following: please become a brainwave donor in order to accelerate and to scale brain-computer interfaces that can be life-changing, that will be used for people who are excluded from society because they cannot communicate, because they cannot use their limbs, to be able to study again. And that's the goal of a lifetime for Rodrigo, to be able to have access to employment again. And the reason we're teaming up, besides the fact that we've been friends since a crazy day at the White House when we met, and we got kicked out of the White House by Led Zeppelin, but that's another story. It's because we got complementary skills. I, with Paul and my collaborators, we love to do technology that helps people. He's got this incredible talent and worked hard in order to scale things. He's too humble to say it, but Rodrigo and his institute have helped more than 1.5 million students with disability have access to education, have access to internship, totally changing their lives. So we think that with our technology, with the scaling and deployment talent of Rodrigo, and with your brainwaves, we can literally change the world and make it even more inclusive. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you to all of our speakers now. We will open up to questions from you. We have 2 microphones, so I can ask you to wait until you get a microphone and just state your name and your affiliation, please. Thank you.
Hi there, my name is Charlotte Kahn. I'm a journalist, independent. I'm here on behalf of ITU to conduct interviews with some of the leaders present here. I'll be on the stage tomorrow to MC the compliance session. I have a very practical question for you, Olivier, with regards to Brainwave donation. Can you tell us a bit more about the process, how it works, who can do it, where, how much time it takes, etc.?
Thank you very much for that question that allows me to expand a little bit, Charlotte. We're building the project. I think we have at least 12 months ahead of us to build the infrastructure with our partners to make sure that we do the things the way they need to be done on the regulatory front, on the scientific excellence front, and also on the ethical front. The plan is to develop, imagine photo booths that would be brain booths where people on campuses, because we want to be affiliated with research institutions to make sure that, again, everything is done the right way. Brain booths where people would play video games that will test for their attention, also train them to do some mental commands. And for these data collected on campuses in research facilities, for starters, to be shared with our consortium of researchers should the donors allow this data to be shared. So the idea is to deploy, and this is why we are partnering and we're going to announce in the coming months top universities around the world. I think we'll be able to announce soon that on all continents. Top researchers, human rights people also is super important. And I think this is a point you want to make. We are also working on a daily basis with users. And that's also something that was mentioned by Charlotte, by Tilly. We need the end users to give us feedback on what we're building, Rodrigo.
Yeah, and remember, the final goal here is to change the perspective, the horizons that those children can think about, the dreams they can have. And 3 facts I would like to highlight. First, you know, children learn in different ways, and this is critical to children with disabilities because they are much more impacted by the barriers imposed by the schools. Second, we need to abandon the old-fashioned way of teaching and move to an education framework oriented towards diversification. So we need to diversifying the material formats, we need to diversifying the evaluation process, the activities in the classroom. So that's the way we see education as really a leverage for those children. And technology, AI, can really make this new kind of education feasible because teachers can now focus their time in much more noble activities like planning their classes, discussing the difficulties of the students, and acting as a conductor of the learning process. And what Oliver is developing and all the results that he's going to reach will help us move forward and really eliminate exclusion in schools.
Briefly, one thing that you need to keep in mind is that a lot of assistive technology, or so-called assistive technology, that were developed for people with physical cognitive impairment became mainstream products. We're not talking about niche R&D here. The remote control was first developed for people with disabilities, but then become an object that changed their lives and the way we interact with technology for billions of people and market. And what we've been developing with solutions to mind control connected objects required us to develop detections of stress, attention, and cognitive loads that are used today by surgeons in the surgery rooms in Abu Dhabi in order to help them monitor their performance and better manage their performance. By biotech dental with a dental surgeon and in classrooms to personalize learning. So we work, for starters, for a certain kind of population, just like any other product developer, by the way, and then it can benefit more and more people. And this is the great message. Thanks to AI, we can scale.
Thanks for that. On that, Leslie Saxon has a comment to make before we move to the next question.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say on this topic of how AI is going to play out in health and human performance, I don't really see this as bad guy tech giants, evil versus good. I think it's, one of the interesting things about governing the compute, right? If you govern the compute too early, too fast, you don't get these massive innovations because there are too many impediments to growth. So you need to rock and roll a little bit at first. You need to accept risk on the commercial side. But in generally how I view this is, okay, so there's health. We're going to use AI and all these amazing technologies and data for health and human performance. But then there are questions of ownership and commercialization. Are these things ethically bound to represent the interest of the individual? Hopefully, and they probably will be. But as I try to kind of conceptualize this massive topic, I think it's really important to just democratize it in your head and say, Google isn't intrinsically evil, or Elon, any of these creators. The amazing things have happened. How do we now corral it for objectives and then let it grow, right? Because you can't just govern it. That makes no sense to me from the get-go. You have to wait till it evolves a little bit to even know what you're governing, right? Which isn't to say that I'm in any particular camp. I just think it needs to be open space.
Thank you, Leslie. Any more questions for our speakers?
I'm Professor Warzova. I'm UC alumni as well, and postgraduate film scoring. And thank you for the vulnerable stories you shared. It's amazing. And based on that, I am organizing a Parkinson's concert in New York next year where Parkinson's patients and caregivers will play on stage. And I think I can see it in your eyes, you know what's coming now. Rodrigo shared with me he would like to play the bass. And with your power, and also what Tilly just said, that you could play music instruments, let's have a concert with you guys, an orchestra based with all of you, and for awareness, and tap in the brainwaves of the audience so you can get your data.
Ladies and gentlemen, Walter Warzowa, Emmy Award composer, the guy who leveraged AI to finish Beethoven's 10th Symphony and did many, many other things. He embodies the combination of human skills, intuition, and talent with AI in order to achieve greater things. Walter, I think we got a deal. Tilly, you'll be with us?
I'm in.
All right. We got a band.
Here we are.
And
As long as you don't make him sing, it's fine.
Hello. Yeah. Hi, my name is Peter Krell from AI Mag. Nice to meet you. We have heard about this discussion also at the Chaos Computer Club conference, which happens annually every year. And there has been, looking at the upside, of course, lots of potential that we all see, especially if impaired people are getting to live their best life possible using these technologies. But then again, at the Chaos Computer Club also, people were thinking about, I mean, there's a German think tank about this too, how BCI data might be an issue for regulation or have to become more closely looked at, especially because there might be a downside. So I wanted to ask you particularly, Olivier, what do you see for the downside? What could happen, what could terribly go wrong with this?
Who is that question to? Who is the question to?
To Olivier.
Oh.
The history of mankind is a history of development of technology, and for these technologies to have been hijacked from their initial goal, regardless of how good the initial goal was. AI, brain-computer interfaces, are no exceptions. People can do a lot of things with them, exoskeletons, you name it. What we need is fair regulation that is developed in collaboration with people who know what they're talking about. Practitioners, regulators, policymakers, like in any other sector. And this is why we're building an open access database, and we're working with ethicists with regulations. We will have the right IRBs in all of the campuses we work on in order to make sure that we're doing things by the book. As of what you alluded to, the fact that there are questions about BCI data regulation, it's like any other device that collects human data. You need to do it by following the right process, having the right IRB, and following the regulation. And I think that we've been supporting this. On a personal level, I was the person leading the fact that France became the very first country in 2011 to add neuroscience to its law. Work on this, keep on working on this. We are all involved on this, but it's a work in progress. And yes, there will be some downsides, but what we can see today with brain-computer interfaces, AI, human experience, what Leslie shared in terms of enhancing performance and longevity, is there are a lot of positive outcomes, which for me are what we need to focus at the moment without turning a blind eye to what could go wrong.
Because with mind control, with mind control, it goes in two directions, right? I mean, one is to control a process with your mind, and the other is the other side. Like, I mean, there might be a particular way to also then expand that knowledge. And how is this going to be prevented looking forward, also for the average person?
With all due respect, sir, artificial intelligence and technology are just a mirror of who we are as human beings. We didn't wait for artificial intelligence and robotics for some accidents to happen. We didn't wait for ChatGPT for some stupid answers to be made. If every time ChatGPT was making an answer that humans deem stupid or dangerous, we would collect what humans have done that is bad. Technology is just a mirror of us. Human beings have created extraordinary things and horrible things. It's the same with technology. We have a power to regulate and to give it positive outcomes. I think you're talking to the wrong people when it comes to the bad outcomes, because everything we do is regulated, legal, ethical, and orientated towards the most positive outcomes. But again, we're not turning a blind eye on what could go wrong.
I think the real threat, and I think there is one, particularly if you know how everybody thinks, is that it's digital, right? So it can be hacked. So an adversary can get a hold of how Americans think, or how French think, or how the president thinks, and manipulate that, right? And that is, at scale, a horrific security concern. So I don't know how to develop the systems other than the cyber systems and stuff, but I think there are databases here that are so unbelievably attractive to people with out to exploit, that I go to bed every night because I proselytize about how great all this is all day, and then at night I lay in bed and say, what am I doing? Because you cannot doubt, what the idea that we're unleashing something so powerful for exploitation is just, it's a scary thing. Like Olivier, I'm doing what I'm doing because I'm excited about it for good, but it worries the hell out of me.
Leslie, let's be honest too. There was mass manipulation before digital, and there will be after digital.
Yeah, I'm not saying humanity's ever been particularly good. I'm just saying this is at a scale that's wild, right? And that's the part that the shock and awe part of it for me.
Take an example of low tech, cognitive test, personality test. We have 50 years of scientific literature, peer-reviewed scientific literature that reports the limits, the lack of predictability, yet they are still used in order to discriminate people, to prevent people to have jobs. Low tech has done an immense amount of damage when it comes to manipulating people, and we are focusing on AI. I'm not saying that we should focus on low tech and forget about AI. We should look at every tech and regulate it the right way.
It's just that IRBs are not going to protect this massive data set. It's too powerful, right? It's just like IRBs aren't going to limit it. It's way too important to adversaries, whoever they are, for that to be.
So that could be a long debate. I think I need to open to this gentleman over here.
precisely not a gentleman, because probably the question was asked to the wrong people, since you are all so good. But in the room there is a very nasty person, like that's me, and I can explicit the question which was asked to you. There was a tweet before, starting with hello. When I write a mail, I write hello or dear Madame, dear Sir, but quite often I mean go to hell, bastard. And when I shake hands with someone,
Hello.
every second time I feel more like punching the nose of the person. What I mean that it does not apply only to exceptionally ill, nasty people like me who will soon be in the Guinness of Record. It applies to everyone. We all have double edged feelings, we have afterthoughts, and it's part even of the ambiguity of the language. There would be no literature without ambiguity. So my question will come. 20 years back, when I was not quite as nasty and stupid as I am now, you would have asked me, will science, will neurology be able to achieve what we have seen here? I would say no, because each wish, each desire is very ambiguous, and they will never be able to translate into a non-ambiguous movement of the hand what are so, let's say, hazy psychological orders. And still you made it, you did it. And I am baffled, and my question is scientific. How did you do that? Whereas you know, and all psychoanalysts know, that desire, wishes, behavior, thinking, words are ambiguous and double-edged by nature.
I remember you from last year.
Olivier.
Thank you for ruining all the interactions all of us are going to have in our life from now on. That will start with hello. Thanks a lot. We'll make it short. We had that interaction last year, I remember. You asked me to comment on psychoanalysis. I will not, because I'm only interested in science. So I will deflect on this one.
Okay, next question, please.
Good afternoon. I am Isabel Sacco. I work for EFE, Spanish News Agency. I am interested by this concept of inclusion that you mentioned, inclusive technology. It seems to be very ideal, but is it realistic in the sense that technology is increasing the gap and is documented between poor and wealthy people, and it will be like this and in the future. So how all these advances that you are showing could be affordable for people in most of the world, that millions or hundreds of millions of people cannot afford any basic education service, health service, or even food security?
Should we get Charlotte and Tilly to answer this first, actually?
I will try my best, because I think that's a really good question. And like, I sometimes hate sitting up like on a stage talking about this tech, because it is pointless wearing it and me having it if it's not accessible to everybody else. Like, it feels bad to sit there and like showcase something that's not going to be available to other people, you know. So whenever I go to a country where it's like it's not available yet, that's devastating, and we do all we can to get in touch with medical services. For as far as open bionics and these prosthetics go, one of the big problems, regardless of finances, is because they're medically approved, there's a whole process you've got to go through to be able to actually get them even in another country. So you need a clinic on the ground in each country that you launch in to go through that clinical process. And that could be improved in the future, because I know some 3D printed scans can be done like remotely via an app, but because of the medically approved nature of it, there's a clinic at the minute, so that's the first barrier. But as far as like finances go, 100%. They need to be more accessible. Like, for example, I told you my most expensive pair of prosthetics in the past were about 36 grand, Great British pounds, and they couldn't open wide enough to hold a cup. Like, it is terrible, and we've come a long way. These are half the price and they do so much more, but it's still a decent price, and that's just the cost of technology at this point. And the more we, you know, evolve and, you know, more technology comes out, like 3D printing, for example, prices can come down just with the evolution of tech. Like, more components that are cheaper can be integrated into the prosthetics, so, you know, we're not using as expensive materials. But until that point, it's very important that we keep the price down as much as possible. And Open Bionics have a charity which is literally run with as much importance as the whole company is. Because, like I said, it is pointless to have this tech and people not have access to it. So there is the Open Bionics Foundation, which there are active people like fundraising into constantly. We're thinking of launching a podcast soon where all revenue and everything will be going to that. And I always encourage people to donate whenever I go to events like this. I'm not entirely sure on like the company's front, like their plans to bring prices down, because at the end of the day, all I do in it is test it and give feedback. So it's kind of difficult for me to answer that question with like stats and everything. But I just want to make it very known that it is something that we regard with the utmost importance. Like I said, it is pointless, and it's why we've worked so hard to get them on the NHS in England. We're very lucky to have that. I was part of the NHS trial so that they are free in England now. I believe they're free in France as well for children. But obviously, you need to cater to the medical systems in every country. Every country isn't as lucky to have that. So it's important to do the private fundraising, which is something that we very much do. But yeah, I think it's just going to be a mixture of more components coming out that are cheaper, integrating that more, but also taking our own initiative to go out and raise that money and make sure people who are less fortunate and can't afford it, like myself, like without my community, there's no way I'd be wearing it today because we couldn't afford it as a family. Without them, I wouldn't be in this situation either. So it's very, very important and something that we cannot forget when it comes to propelling forward and making this tech. Accessibility is like at the forefront, and I hope to see it free for everybody. Like at the end of the day, my belief, and I've said this so many times throughout my life, I believe having 4 limbs is a human right. And if everybody got behind that and donated and invested in that idea in the same way they invest into all these you know, AI ideas and like startup companies, I feel like that would make such a positive impact and benefit. So unfortunately, that's all I can say. But I just want to say it's so, so important. And yeah, I hope that other companies don't neglect that.
I know Leslie wants to add something, and maybe Charlotte, if you want to. No? Leslie, do you want
think
to
I take exception. Yeah, I think the internet and mobility, smartphone, the dominant computing platform has reduced the gap and has accelerated global health. I mean, if you think about, you can build digital literacy with a smartphone and an internet connection without actually having literacy. So during COVID, at one of our large in Los Angeles hospitals, where 67% of the people entering that hospital don't have immigration status, forget about language, 80% have no English language. We managed COVID, and these are the patients that were taking huge mortality, getting the worst medical outcomes from COVID. We managed them digitally, even if they weren't literate and couldn't speak English through apps. Take Kibera, the largest slum city in the world outside Nairobi. Safer for women and children, hugely violent place where 1.5 million people live, with apps to let people know with local maps where the danger areas are so children and women can avoid those. Global tracking of HIV in pediatric populations in Africa, revolutionized by mobility, banking. So I think that the income gaps and the education gaps are dramatically reduced with this, because digital democratizes. It's inexpensive. And I mean, I view it as probably a solution much more than an impediment. So we need to do a better job at building these networks, but that's happened at unprecedented pace globally, including the rural United States or Africa or anywhere. And then we need to, but I think that there are so many people who are digitally literate and now have economy than are actually literate.
You need products to be developed, to be sold so that the prices can go down. It's not going to happen overnight. And the fact that when you build a certain solution, whether it's just a prototype, a scientific prototype, or something that is meant to be commercialized, that is not accessible to everybody around the world when you launch it, should not prevent us to keep on innovating, to keep on making sure that it requires less energy, to pruning our models, to 3D printing to reduce the cost, to find everything. The reason we manage building on the very accurate point Leslie made, we managed to get some phones in areas of the world where there is no electricity at the moment, and that it changed our lives, is because literally hundreds of millions of phones have been sold around the world, that the technology became better, more affordable, having longer batteries, etc. So yes, it's always frustrating. If your question is, do we wake up in the morning thinking we don't do enough? Yes. Every morning we talk, we are frustrated because we would love to do more. Will this prevent us from doing what we do? Absolutely not. This is the motivation to scale, to make it affordable, and this is why we're building something that is accessible. But
thank you.
The only way to succeed and to scale is to keep on developing, cutting down the prices, and make it accessible to the underserved.
So I'm just looking at the time. We have time for about 2 or 3 more questions. So do you still have the mic?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Then
The
we'll come
second
to
one
you.
of on the potential, because the title of the press conference is superhuman. So we think about longevity and gain of life expectancy and healthy life expectancy. So what can we achieve, and in what period, in what deadline do you think from your research? And related to this, are we not taking this problem of or this desire to live more in a wrong way, in the sense of people have problems because more stress, we eat badly, we don't sleep. I mean, we don't have activity, physical activity, basic things that we don't do. So why going to the superhuman if we cannot resolve daily basic things that we can do in our lives? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Who would like to take that on the panel? It's a big one.
I would just say that the one thing our research has shown, because, you know, it's hard to get people to behavior change, right? Educated people, they still don't eat right or they won't sleep. So one of the things we've shown is that if we engage the user, you have to take agency. This is not a passive thing where there's Big Brother. We give you the data on yourself, personalized to you. We show you how it impacts your health. That tends to accelerate the behavior change because people just aren't ignorant and fat and lazy. They don't have the information they need to act in their best interests. How do you accelerate that? And we find, our research has shown that by giving you data in an engaging way, people will accelerate the change toward positive behaviors, but they have to take ownership. It's not an entitlement. It's not the state saying, let me give you a program to give you nutrition. It's a person saying, I want to be healthier. Here's how my body works. This is my next action. And that we're starting to show positive results there. It's early days though, and it's about, you know, maybe you need it more in this kind of stressful world we live in, not less. I don't know, but it seems like it works and it accelerates people toward understanding to act in their best interest.
We learned a lot from Charlotte. Professional top athletes, we learned a lot from top athletes on the rigor on what to do, and she shared that self-report can be biased. So we need metrics, we need better technology in order to track what Leslie is doing, what Charlotte mentioned. Learning from top performers, whether we're talking about CEOs, jet fighters, professional athletes, on the discipline, on what works, and how we can translate it to lay people like us is key. And this is exactly why behavioral and brain sciences can help on the engagement front, because informing people will never be enough. Keep in mind 2 words: physicians smoke. They're the most educated people when it comes to help, yet they smoke. Information is not enough. And this is why we need to learn from what Leslie does, Charlotte, and all of us here.
Thank you. We got time for a couple of questions. I think someone on Longview in the front row had a question.
Yes, that's
and then
front row, back row.
And then you, Ian. Yeah.
Oh, thanks so much. It's a fascinating panel, super inspiring. Tilly, I totally hope you launch that podcast soon. I'm very eager to listen. Question for you, just to go back to the market pressures for a moment. I was curious, this vision you're pointing out about technology that adapts to us as opposed to we have to adapt to technology. It's such a beautiful idea. The reason, though, that we have to often adapt to technology is they can make one iPhone and sell it to millions of people, as opposed to making personalized technology for each person. And I was wondering if we start thinking of this as less about health and less about medical devices, less about prosthetics, and more in the realm of what we could call it human augmentation, or everybody's device. Anybody would want some of this technology. Is that a useful paradigm shift that you guys think about, or do you want to focus on the kind of medical space for particular reasons?
This is a medical device now, right? So I love that idea. Who knows what the medical device of the future is? You know, the internet is a medical device, right? So breaking out of these silos when everything is everywhere and connected is a really important concept.
For me, I always say, because we're all very AI pro, I think, ish, here today, right? But I go to a lot of tech conferences, actually, where they're less techy and they're less like we love it all the time. And sometimes they get me in to be like, show people that tech is actually doing some good, and that's sort of my role there. So in my presentations, usually, I end it saying like, we aren't heading for inevitable dystopia, like a lot of people think in those rooms. We are heading towards inevitable change, but within that, we have a choice. And that's what I always say. And I do end it with, could this go wrong if it's in the wrong hands? Yes, anything could. And the way I end it usually is but the way I think we deal with that is by keeping it ethical, is by consulting people who live differently, who have disabilities, because it's those people who are going to benefit the most. They're going to be able to live the life that you guys live every day that they haven't been able to. So I always say I am all for that being the focus to begin with. And I think a lot of people like that perspective because they are a little bit scared of it all taking off. But when I say there's inevitable change, I do feel like part of that inevitable change will be the rest of the world jumping on board and getting prosthetics and human augmentation and all that stuff as well. So while I do say to keep it ethical roots right now, I do feel like in the far future, I want to say, I don't know, I hope it's not too near because I don't think all of us are ready for that. But I do feel like it's something that other people will jump on. And again, I feel like that'll be fine so long as there's regulation. We make sure that we're not getting hacked here, there, and everywhere. I think that's a good start. I used to be all for Neuralink and things like that. And I was I hit the big age of 19, and I think my frontal lobe partially developed. And I was maybe let's try non-invasive first. But I do feel like that will be a thing in the future, and it will be, can be a positive thing. So yeah, that's my view.
What's interesting is also the fact that look at the prosthetics. Some people will put this in the category of medical devices, but this is a lifestyle device. You use it on a daily basis to eat, to write, to operate things. So it's so obvious to say it, but yes, you need to be in good health, you need to be alive in order to enjoy life. But once the medical device empowers you to do things that go beyond just keeping in good health, then we're already in this new paradigm. What I have here is a brain headset, 5 electrodes that Rodrigo can use in order to mind control things. In 2019, the company is Emotive. I'm no longer, full disclosure, I'm no longer employed by the company, but I'm a shareholder. We released this in 2019. And for information, Apple and Meta released their patent on brain sensing earbuds in 2023. And the latest technology is here. A few weeks ago, brain sensing earbuds, you can monitor your stress, attention in order to have feedback, what you mentioned, Charlotte, what Leslie mentioned, and also to play video games with your mind. So it comes from a technology that is categorized as medical technology, and it should be regulated as such because this is medical data. Is data from our brains. There should be a specific regulation, and there is, but then you can use it for other purposes. hopefully, when it comes to us, all of us, we're using it to improve people's lives. And this is what matters. Outcomes should matter. We talk too much about the tools. I hope one day we'll stop being asked questions about AI. If I were an architect or a carpenter, we wouldn't be talking about my hammer. We would be talking about the buildings I build and what is happening to the people who live in this building, which is more interesting, in my opinion, than the tool itself, as long as the tool is legal, ethical, responsible, and does not harm people.
Thank you.
And just adding to what Oli said, the concept of universal design presumes the combination between a personalized solution with collective solution. So it's not one thing or a second thing, it's one thing and another thing. I agree with you when you said that inclusion and inclusive society is an ideal, it's a perspective, it's a vision. Is it feasible? Well, it depends on what are we going to do with that. So this group of people, we are working every day believing that we have a role to explore it positively. And in my country, for example, in Brazil, 50 years ago, only 30% of the children could access school. Nowadays, more than 90% are studying. So there are lots of examples of remarkable advancements we've made regarding the potential of human changes. And AI is just another phase of that. So it's in our hands to make it really a new era in terms of advancements and also promoting inclusive society, but looking really in terms of what does every child need, and how does education, how does economy, and how does health play its role in that trajectory.
The fact that there are wars in many countries should not prevent us from aspiring to a peaceful society. The fact that society is not inclusive enough should not prevent us from working and developing solutions that will improve inclusiveness and accessibility. We have to keep these ideals. That is what keeps us, working hard every day.
So thank you for that. In the interest of time, I'm going to move to Ian for the last question, and then we're a bit over, sir, and then I think we need to stop. So over to you, Ian.
Hello? Hello? No? Can you hear?
Microphone.
Hello? 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 Hey. So anyway, thank you very much for the interesting discussion. My name's Ian Ginn from Digital Talk. In 28th of June was an important milestone for accessibility. The EU's Accessibility Act came into force. So one question to you as a whole panel is, how does that affect you? Do you see that affecting you? And also, given we're at the AI for Good Summit, what do you think regulators and policymakers can do combining those two ideas in the future, and what advice do you have for them?
Would anyone like to start? Who knows about that act?
What they should do is what happened to me, and I wish them that, is I met this guy, it changed my personal and my professional life in 2012, because I spent time with him, I listened to him, and then he helped us design the solution. Earlier, I mentioned the fact that regulation should be designed not only by policymakers, but also by people on the ground. And this is what needs to happen. What is happening on the ground? Let's not repeat the mistakes we're seeing in climate science, where a lot of decisions are made without taking into account what the reality of people in their everyday life is. There are people who are guilting others because they do not protect the environment, but these people that do not protect the environment are first focused on surviving, on feeding their children, on keeping their jobs. And as long as these problems are not solved, these real life problems, the environment will not be a priority for them. We have to do the same thing. Let's not make the mistakes. Let's anchor it in what the end users, the people who want what are their needs? And Paul Barbast and I made mistakes when we came with the best intentions, starting Inclusive Brains, until we got back to speaking to Rodrigo and to all our friends that told us, well, we don't need that, but this is what you need. Focus on that.
Yeah,
Reality check.
No, it's fine. I would say a similar thing. Like, my experience with prosthetics was like crazy. I was working with all these different companies, and it took Open Bionics. They were the first company who actually sat down and they just said, "What do you want?" You know, that simple question. Worked with like 3 companies before that point and then never asked. They just never asked the question. And, you know, that's because of like history and, you know, like people were losing their hands in war and they wanted like realistic looking prosthetics. It was more about cosmetics than it was about function. But then it's like time changes, you know. And for like my advice, and I say this in my own presentation as well, for them to be the first company to ask, "What do you want?" was absolutely crazy. And they were able to create like a product 1,000,000 times better and more suited to the user in a fraction, like a fifth of the time it took them, making the same prosthetic again and again and again that some people today don't resonate with. Some do, but also some don't. So I think that's been a big theme on this panel. It's user feedback and like working with the customer and the patient to make what they actually want and what would be useful for them. Like Charlotte was saying, everyone is different and we have like different needs and wants for our prosthetics. So the advice I give to every company who want to make anything is just go way back to the basics and ask those simple questions. Get somebody on board who is going to be like crucial and very, very active in giving feedback. And like it starts there. You're not going to create anything successful or remotely good if you're not going back and forwards with somebody about it.
Yeah, I think I just echo that really. And throughout my career, I've learned that there's a real beauty in conversation. I don't go and achieve all of these things on the field of play by myself. It's a real collaborative effort. And how I respond to certain things is very, very different to how somebody who's doing the exact same training. I'm talking in sporting terms here. We train the same day in, day out, and the output is very, very different. And so in our elite world, we learn the importance of nuanced conversation. And I think that's also something in my life outside of sport as a lived experience as a person with a disability. It's the beauty of conversation. It's having the conversation and the courage to ask the question. People will give you their response or they may not, but it all starts with that conversation.
Right. If you could make it quick, we're a bit over time.
AI, I mean, there's a way to think about this, like people arguing about that AI might be incontainable to a certain extent, where AGI or SGI or all these like super intelligent entities may not be that well alignable, you see. And so that's the reason why I think we should think about, if we were collecting these brain data, like the Chinese government has already also announced they would do, and they have a ministry for that, so there seems to be some sort of containment right there. And maybe this could be an inspiring idea to think about where to keep these, possibly in the most safest place, and then still there's the danger that an AGI or some entity in the artificial intelligence world might take these in order to do maybe some human unintended uses with these. And that's the only additional worry that I would like to mention, because I really think what you guys are doing is really great, you know, really helping people who are in a terrible life situation and they can improve their situation using this tech. This is, I mean, like really a great achievement. I would like to salute you for that, but I also would like to ask this question, because I think freedom of speech is very important, and we do have to understand that there needs to be some concept if you want to collect these data. Maybe you could explain about this more, how you are going to go about these data collections and where they're going to be hosted. If you could present us this idea, then this might be maybe a good point to conclude on your claim
Thank you very much. If you go to brain.org, there is the press release with a detail. Point taken, sir. Thank you very much for sharing your opinion.
Great. Well, thank you very much. I'm sorry we are a little over time, so I want to close off now. Thank you to all our fantastic speakers and different perspectives. It's really, really interesting. Thank you very much. They will all, I think, be available potentially for interviews, but they're very busy during the summit, so please do approach me or approach them directly, if I'm correct in that. And thank you to all of you for coming and participating so actively. So thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you. That was crazy.